Hello everyone. Today we're going to be talking about the current car market analysis going on here at the fourth quarter of 2023. As you know, we're walking into Christmas, and if you're crazy like me, you're browsing through the car markets. Now, what type of platforms do I look for when I'm looking for a car? I look on eBay, I look on Bring a Trailer, Cars and Bids, Cars.com, Facebook Marketplace, and also the Facebook pages. Now, there's a lot of Facebook pages for different cars. Some of them are dedicated for cars. Some of them they're just selling a generalized exotic car market or JDM markets or whatever, or muscle car markets. But I am looking through all of those, and I typically spend some time looking through them daily. I know it sounds crazy to look through car markets daily, but it's kind of like a hobby, and I really enjoy looking at cars. And I also like to see how the valuations and how the prices fluctuate, how they've changed, and how some of the cars have really gone crazy. So the car market here in the fourth quarter is definitely cooling down, and the reason why is because we're stepping into what they call the Christmas time. So people don't want to buy a car because of Christmas, and they also don't want to buy a car because traveling is a little harder. Half of the country is essentially going to be locked down when it comes to snow here January and February, and it's just not that time of the year. It's just that time of the year where people really aren't looking for cars or looking to sell them. Now, would I say that this is a buyer's market? I would say that this is a buyer's market. And the reason why is because when people really don't want to sell a car, they're doing it because they need to sell it for a reason. So if you need to sell a car for a reason, most of the time you're going to be a little more flexible with the price, meaning it's going to be more of a buyer's market. Also, let's talk about the general economy itself. Well, right now we're stepping into what you would say the rates era, or the rates saga here in the United States. As you saw, the Federal Reserve has tightened up the rates, and the reason for that is so people don't borrow money, and so people save more and the economy could cool. But long story short, especially for people buying homes and cars, the rates for auto loans is not good, or rates for home loans are either. So what I'm seeing right now for the used car market for older cars is about 10% with really good credit. And then for newer cars, you're seeing anywhere between 5 and 7%, more on the 7% side for newer cars. I'm sure some people get a little bit lower, but at the end of the day, that's what I'm seeing across the board. And still, that's not a very welcoming environment, because just a few years before, you could literally take out a loan for, let's say, a $100,000 car for 2%, even 1% back in the days. And really, that's attracted a lot of people to going out and buying cars. But now when people are looking at buying vehicles, if they're seeing percentage rates in the double digits, people are getting a lot more scared. So how does that impact car buyers? Well, of course, if you're buying with cash, that really doesn't apply to you. If you're trying to get a loan, if you're trying to buy an older vehicle, you're going to see those double digits, and that's not good. If you're trying to buy a newer vehicle, you've got those single digits, but still, it's not good, because your newer vehicles are going to depreciate on top of a higher interest rate. It's just not a good situation. So as far as what cars are changing in the market, well, we're going to start off and talk about some of the cars that I've been looking at and really keep it there. And then as we expand this type of videos, I'll maybe talk about more different kind of cars. But one of the cars that made me or inspired me to make this video is the 996 Porsche 911 Turbo. So that car, I would say about 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, you could go online and you could go through all those platforms that I talked about online, those websites, and you could find one for about 30 to 50 grand, and 50 grand capping out. Like, you're talking about a really good condition one. And I always really loved the 996 twin turbos. And the reason why is that one time I read a magazine, and it was about this guy who drove his 996 twin turbo. I think it was either 300 or 500,000 miles, and he almost had no issues with it. And I was like, that's awesome. And I mean, these are some really fast cars too. So these are, like, in my opinion, they're awesome cars. But the 996 Porsche had a bad reputation. And the reason why I had a bad reputation was because of the IMS bearing. And really, it was only isolated to the 996 911s. But the 996 twin turbos did not suffer from the IMS issue. But sometimes whenever that bad reputation for a model hovers over the whole model, it sometimes bleeds over into other car models that aren't affected by it. And that really came down to the 996 twin turbo. Well, let's fast forward here in 2023, and I could not believe it. I was scrolling and I saw this beautiful yellow 996 twin turbo all stock, and I was like, that could probably be a cool car to own. I'm gonna save it. I think it's beautiful. I think it's mint. I don't know how far it's gonna go in the auction. And then the next day I woke up and it was gone. And I looked for it. I spent like 10 minutes trying to look for it. I was like, where did it go? I was like trying to hunt it down on different websites. And I was like, that's weird. So then I started to go through these websites, and now I started looking at 996s and being like, well, I kind of like that yellow one. Let me look at other ones. And that's when I started seeing, you know, numbers in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and I even saw them in the hundreds. And I was like, what is going on here? Well, it looks like finally the 996 bad reputation for the IMS bearing, which the 996 twin turbo never had, has finally been removed or has been forgotten, and people have truly realized that the 996 twin turbo is a fantastic car that is extremely reliable. I always say the diesel of the car, or the diesel F-150 7.3 of cars. And what I mean by that is there's actually some trucks out there, not to digress so much, but there's some trucks out there that could go up to 1,000,000 miles and, you know, they just keep going. Well, it looks like the 996 twin turbo is one of those that had just a great motor in it, and that is very reliable. So yes, the 996 twin turbo is probably one of those things that are now is going to be collectible. And again, once the market kind of pumps those up all the way up there, especially with the market that is a lot cooler right now, it is interesting to see the 996 is that high now, which is crazy. And during the process of looking at these cars, I also saw the 2016, the 2018, I think they're still making them, but the Ford Mustang 350R. Now, I've always loved these cars, even though I'm not a big domestic car. I love them. I've always been interested in these because, you know, they got that flat crank engine that revs up to like 8,000 RPMs or whatever, the carbon fiber wheels, the way that it looks, the manual transmission, everything about it really attracts me to the car. And it just looks like a lot of fun. I mean, with that much power and that much revs, I mean, you can't go wrong. Well, when they first came out, they're real popular, but when I was initially looking at them, people talked about some oil issues and some engine failure issues. And then as I started looking through them over the past years, you would read ads that said, blah, 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 does not have oil consumption or oil engine issues. And then that started a whole new attachment to the car, where people looked at that car and it was like the IMS bearing for the 996, and they were like, hold up, this is literally another issue here where we have to worry about these oil consumption issues and these engine failures in the GT350Rs. Well, if you fast forward now to 2023, you will see that there are some GT350Rs being sold and they are on a tick up. And from what I'm understanding is that if you beat on the engine, and I don't know a lot of information about the 350R issue. As a matter of fact, that's how nerdy I was. I was thinking about buying one just to dive real deep into why the 350R had engine failures and how they've been fixed or what to do to fix them. Because I thought it'd be fun to own it and also to dive deep in that issue, because once I conquered the RX-7 sequential twin turbo issue, I knew I could pretty much do anything. I also fixed the valve stem seals on my 2JZ and the Supra, so I feel confident I could, you know, approach a technical issue and do a good video and teach people about it. But long story short, there's a problem with the engine in the 350R that had to do with owner maintenance, and also, I guess, I don't know if it's a manufacturer issue or not, but essentially it led to engine failure. But then I went on eBay and I started doing some cross analysis on it and other websites, and you know, they're starting to go on a tick up, and the reason why is because you're really not going to see a lot of cars that from Ford or any manufacturer that really made a dedicated race track edition. And I think the 350R is definitely collectible, and you're starting to see that being resembled in the market. So another thing I also saw too was the Toyota Supra market. Now, I've been thinking about buying another Toyota Supra. I want a manual one. I don't really care if it's a left-hand drive or right-hand drive. But long story short, the Supra market is a little soft right now, which is crazy, which means it's a buyer's market. I've seen some really nice Supras sell for 60, 70, and 80 grand. And we're talking about some nice ones. Some people will say right-hand drive ones, but I've seen some left-hand drive Supras, really nice ones, sell from 75 to 80, where I would say last year they were we sold anywhere from 80 to 100. So definitely you see some softening in the market there. I would say those are the main cars that I've been looking at. I've been looking at some high-end cars just for fun to look at how much high-end cars cost. So I've been looking at Ferrari 458s, Ferrari 488s, and Lamborghini Huracans. And the crazy thing is that it's funny how car classes have a certain number, and really the Ferrari 488 and the Lamborghini Huracan, they're at 200,000. Literally 200,000 is the mark. The Ferrari 458 is anywhere from 150 to 200, depending on the model. Of course, if it's the super special one, it's like double that. But I found it interesting that the Lamborghini Huracan and the Ferrari 488 are at that same price range. I also learned that McLaren, you know, they have good reviews, but they're right underneath Ferrari and Lamborghini when it comes to prices. Like an entry-level McLaren, you're pretty much looking at anywhere from 125 to 150. And I think, you know, makes me want to start looking at them a little bit more. But yeah, that's it, guys. I thought I'd fill you in with some of the market analysis I've been doing. I don't know, I just decided to make a video and see if you guys are interested about this stuff. I know I love this stuff. I get nerdy about it, and I'm just curious. So again, this was the market analysis for the fourth quarter of 2023.